So as you guys know, I have 5 kids. And actually, by the time this video is published, I will have had this baby. So I will officially be a mom of 6, which is pretty exciting. But what I want to talk to you about today is how I have managed to build this online business of mine and earn over $2.6 million with it over the past several years, which is just crazy, while being a mom of 5 kids who I homeschool, and how I balance those two things. But I'm not going to focus too much in this video on the balance part. I've made a few other videos about that in the past, like my schedule as a work at home mom and what that looks like and how I balance those things. But in this video, I really want to just explain to you in simple terms how my business works, kind of backwards engineer it, talk to you about some of the different systems and processes that I use in the business that has enabled it to earn over $2.6 million with me working less than 20 hours a week on it. And really, my hope for this video is that you will get some ideas for how you might be able to build an online business of your own that is highly profitable, but also sustainable and flexible and fun. Something that you can do on your own time, make really good money, and also support your family. Okay, so first things first, let me explain to you how my business works today. And I'm going to try to keep this super simple. So what does my business sell? Well, 2 main things. So one part is education, basically online courses that teach people how to start and grow successful online businesses. And then the other part is coaching, which is where we're actually working with the people to do that. And as you can probably imagine, the courses being a do-it-yourself type option are somewhat more affordable. And then the coaching, a done with you option, where it requires the time of my team and myself, is, of course, a bit more expensive. But for both of these, my business model is to be on the more affordable side. Now, certainly not a discount model, and we don't sell products for $10, $15, $20 or anything like that. But I just don't believe that it should cost thousands of dollars to learn a basic skill like how to start and grow a successful business. And so most of our courses are priced in the few $100 range. But even for the coaching, I just try to keep the prices really reasonable, at a reasonable kind of markup of our actual costs, because I want to help people start online businesses. I don't just want to try to make as much money as possible, but hurt other people in the process. I really want to help people. And that's something that's really important to me. And that makes, I think, the business so much more fun to run when I feel like I'm helping people and, doing something good for the world. But it also means that, of course, it's somewhat easier for us to make sales because the products aren't overpriced. So that's what we sell and kind of the pricing strategy there. But now let's take a look at how we sell it. Okay, so big picture, here is what my business's sales funnel looks like. So a funnel at the top, obviously, you've got the big part, it goes down to the small part. This is where you are actually making the money. And this is where traffic is coming into the sales funnel. And most funnels have 3 main parts. You've got how you're getting the traffic. This is like your visibility strategy. Then you have how you're turning those people into warm leads who might be interested in buying your products. And then finally, how you are actually closing the sales. So for me today, we've got YouTube. This is by far my biggest source of leads. That's how most people discover me and end up going to my website. And then we've also got SEO. Basically, this is like blog posts and articles on my website that rank on Google, so people find me via Google search. And then the last one is joint venture partnership. So I'm just going to put JV for joint venture. So this is me working with other people who have brands to get my offer or my content featured to their audience so that their audience can discover me and discover my product. So those are the 3 main ways people come into my business. And then from there, how do we warm them up? There are, again, 3 main things, although one of them is by far the biggest, and that is email marketing. So most people who come from one of these 3 sources, we're trying to get them on my email list. Now, the other 2 places they go are my website. My website, obviously, it tells them about the business, tells them about what we offer. It's not nearly as effective as email is because we're not necessarily capturing the lead, so we can't follow up with them ourselves. It's totally dependent on them choosing to come back. But it is where a lot of these people go on their purchase journey, and it does lead them to ultimately purchase a product. And then the third one here is the podcast. And the podcast, a lot of people think that podcast is for visibility because they see some really big podcasts out there that clearly are helping people to reach new audiences. But podcast SEO can be kind of tricky. And for me, at least, and I know this is true for a lot of people normally find me one of these ways. Then they go to my website, or they go and discover my podcast, or they go straight to my podcast. And then that's where they really get nurtured, either email or the podcast. They get to listen to my voice. They get to hear my teaching. They get to hear that I know what I'm talking about and learn things from me. And then they're interested in buying my product. And as far as selling the products, there are basically two sales strategies that I use, and they just both complement each other. And they are, first of all, email marketing. So we use email mid-funnel to nurture them, but also to close them. And then the other part is webinars. So webinars are definitely, well, first of all, they still work. Sometimes people are like, do webinars still work? And if you are asking that question, it might be because webinars don't work on you anymore, because maybe you've been around for a while. Maybe you've attended a lot of webinars yourself in the past, and you kind of got tired of going to webinars, or you got desensitized to them. So there are people out there who webinars don't work on anymore, but there are also millions of people out there who webinars still work great on. And webinars give me by far the highest conversion rate. So I get about 10% conversions on webinars, meaning that 10% of the people who show up at one of my webinars go on to buy my product. Warning to you, right? Don't show up at my webinar if you aren't interested in maybe working with me. But obviously, not everybody wants to go to webinar. Not everybody will. And so I'm able to reach a lot more people via email. And the conversion rate via email is way lower. It's more like about 1%. But I might be able to email like 100,000 people about the offer, and that could turn into 100 sales right there. Whereas a webinar, I probably can only get like 1,000 people to a webinar. And that right there can also turn into 100 sales. But both of them are worth it. Both of them create a lot of sales. The numbers are just a little bit different. But anyway, that's the basics of how my business today attracts leads and turns them into paying customers. Okay, so it is time for a little behind the scenes. So for over a year now, I've been using the payment platform Melio to pay all of the contractors on my team, and it has been making my life so much easier. So I'm really excited to share that they are the sponsor of today's video. So basically, Melio is this super simple digital payment platform that allows you to pay all of your vendors and your contractors and get paid by your business customers all in one place. Your business clients can pay you by ACH transfer or by credit card, and they don't have to sign up or anything to be able to do that. Or you can make it even easier for them by sending them a custom payment link so they can pay you instantly. Melio makes it super easy for them and super easy for you. Now, one of my favorite things about Melio is that their basic plan, called Melio Go, is totally free. There's no monthly charge at all. So you can get started with creating and sending invoices and getting paid completely for free and right away. Now, Melio also has paid plans if you need more advanced features like putting branding on your invoices. And also with their paid plans, you can have your invoices sync with QuickBooks automatically. So it will automatically reconcile your invoices when they get paid. So you don't have to like dig through spreadsheets and try to figure out what matches up with what. For me, using Melio has made getting paid so much easier and paying my team stress-free. So I would definitely recommend that you give it a try. You can give it a try right now at this link right here on the screen, and we will also pop that link into the video description down below. But I know that you'll find Melio really easy to use, and it will save you a ton of time. So now that you understand how the business works today, and that's basically how it's made the 2.6 million, let's talk about how I got started. I made a video a few months ago about like the whole detailed story of everything that went into getting started. And so I'm not going to get into all that, but I do at least want to get into how I got my first few customers, because I don't think that it is very helpful to just hear about like how a successful business works today and how they make millions of dollars. That doesn't really help you figure out how to get from where you are to that point at all. So first year or two was a big struggle for me. And throughout that whole time, I only managed to get a handful of customers. And I feel like mostly I learned a lot of things that didn't work. When I did finally happen to get a customer, it was almost luck, not quite, but What I mean is I was just like throwing so much spaghetti at the wall that it was like, oh, yay, finally something stuck. But that didn't really mean that that strategy was a good idea or that that strategy would work over and over again. It was just because I was trying so many different things. And so I think really the most important lesson there isn't the specific strategies that did work to get those first few customers, but rather that you might have to go through that process. You might have to try a lot of things that don't work before you find the things that do. Now, my hope with, making videos like this is that I can save you some of the guesswork, that I can give you some kind of shortcuts by telling you what did work for me. But just know that most business owners go through this phase where they try things that don't work. And it might be getting your first customer, or it might be hiring your first employee. It might be creating products, whatever it is, but it's normal. Now, what did finally work for getting customers was testing some different product ideas, but keeping it as simple as possible. Because when I was trying to get customers and it wasn't working, I was trying to take this advice that I've heard from a lot of people. And I think that there's some value in this advice, but that it can also go way wrong, as it did for me. And the advice is that you should sell premium products, premium services. So sell things you can sell for thousands of dollars, because that way you need way fewer customers. And if you have a tiny audience, then it makes sense to sell something that you won't need a lot of customers for. So I hope that I explained that in a good way. But for me, it backfired because I didn't yet have like a winning product idea, and I didn't have confidence that I had a winning product idea. So I was trying to sell these different services and programs for thousands of dollars, or sometimes not even thousands, but like several $100s. And then nobody was buying them. And I didn't know if it was because there wasn't demand for it. In a lot of cases, that was the case, or if it was just overpriced, so people didn't want it at that price. So I didn't have very much confidence behind my selling. But what finally did work for me was to kind of strip it all back, keep it super simple, create what might be called like a minimum viable offer, an MVO, something like that, and actually sell some courses for just $27 or $29, so that I knew that price wasn't going to be the issue, and I had a ton of confidence that I was going to over deliver, and make these customers super happy. And so it was when I did that I started seeing dozens of sales come in from my small audience. And then from there, I was able to take some of those winning ideas and turn them into higher priced products, build them out into bigger, more helpful things that I could sell for more money. Next, let's talk about how I scaled my business. And by that, I mean how I went from getting those first few customers to going on to earn over $2.6 million. How did that happen? Well, there were three main things that had to grow. The first one was my customer base. I had to somehow figure out how to get more customers. And that is, of course, the thing that directly drove that revenue growth. So we'll definitely talk about that in just a minute. But first, let me tell you what the other two things were. I also had to scale the systems and the products that I was selling. The business kind of had to mature. I had to figure out the right product mix and the right price points and that sort of thing. And then third, I had to scale the business itself, and by that I mostly mean the team. I needed more help to be able to serve the new customers that were being acquired with these new systems and with the audience growth that was happening. Okay, so audience growth, that's the first of these things that had to scale. And this one was definitely really challenging at first, but once it finally started working, it just took off like a rocket. So when I first started this business, I was using social media, or at least I was trying to use social media to attract customers, but it really wasn't working for me. So after running the business, I say that kind of in quotes, running the business, I wasn't making much money, but that was what I did for the first year or two. And after all that time, I had just a couple hundred email subscribers. It wasn't very much. It was enough to make those first few sales, but I knew that it wasn't growing nearly as fast as I wanted it to. So I decided to just completely scrap social media and come over here to YouTube and focus on YouTube and YouTube alone, because I saw a huge potential here. And that's what I did. And it took off like a rocket. It really did. Of course, there were like a couple slow months, but by month 3, I had over 1,000 subscribers and my channel doubled for the next several months. So in month 4, I got another 1,000. In month 5, I got 2,000. In month 6, I got 4,000. I'm getting my numbers all mixed up here now, but in month 7, I got 8,000, I believe. Anyway, it kept doubling up until about that point when I got 8,000, 10,000 in a month. And then it just steadily stuck to that rate, 10,000 a month for years. And eventually it slowed down a little bit, but it's still growing to this day, which is just so cool. And once the audience really started growing, then I was able to layer in some other strategies because I was able to make more sales. And so I was able to grow my team. So I had more bandwidth and more time and energy because I had other people who were helping me. So we ended up using other strategies to scale further, but most of the scaling of the audience was YouTube. And by the way, if you are interested in learning more about my YouTube strategy, I've got a 1-hour masterclass where I break that all down. It's called 3 Secrets to Reach 1,000 Subscribers in Just 3 Months. And I will leave a link to that down in the description below, or you can just go to creatorfasttrack.com and you will find that workshop there. Anyway, so that's how I scaled my audience. Now, the next thing was scaling my products and sales systems. And obviously there were a lot of different parts of this. First, what it looked like was creating more and more products, trying to, find products that were the most popular, the most in demand, that my audience was most interested in, testing out different price points. And then once I found some winners, then came the hard culling practice. So kind of decluttering the products, figuring out which ones I could let go of. It was a lot like cleaning out your closet. Or like, this dress is good for this occasion and this dress is good for that occasion. I don't wear either of them very often, but what if I have one of those events, one of those situations and I need it? That was exactly how it felt. I had all these different products. They all served their own unique purpose. And I had to make the tough decision to decide which ones to let go of and which ones to keep, because I knew that if I wanted to be able to scale the business further, I really needed to streamline. So that process took a couple of years, but I ended up streamlining the business down to just 4 main products. So today we've got Startup Society, Validate, 100K Mastermind, and then Creator Fast Track. And that's pretty much it. And I think that an important lesson there is that when you think about scaling your products, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are adding more and more products. That was part of the scaling process, but part of the scaling process also was cutting things down and minimizing them actually so that we could scale those products further and make more money with them. So don't think that as your business grows, you need to sell more and more products necessarily. Okay, and then the last part of scaling was scaling the team, scaling the business itself. And this was definitely a process of kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Started with me hiring a few different virtual assistants to just help me out with different kind of random tasks. That didn't work so well though, because it did take almost as much time to manage those people as it would have taken me to do the tasks. And often the tasks didn't end up done as well as I would have liked for them to have gotten done. And of course, that's just something that can happen when you are delegating. But I wasn't really satisfied with both losing the time and also having the quality be lower than I wanted. So what ended up working for me really well was hiring a business manager, because I saw that as a weak point of mine, and also kind of my biggest bottleneck, managing the people. And so she came in and kind of cleaned up my business, got things more organized, and figured out how we could more strategically delegate. And so then we were able to hire some different virtual assistants, customer service people, and other support people throughout the business, graphic designers, video editors, etc., and create like a really well-oiled machine. And I didn't have to spend my time managing the people. That was just the business manager's job. And that left me free to keep brainstorming new products and figuring out ways to improve our sales system and make YouTube videos to grow the audience and do all the other things that we're scaling the business. So we've talked a lot about strategy at this point, but now let's talk about kind of the really practical side of things, of the software and the tools that I used to build this business. You might expect that I have some really expensive funnel software that is running my sales systems or something like that, but I actually don't. I don't use any sort of dedicated funnel software even to this day. But I do use a few different tools to make my sales funnels and make them work. And most of them are the same tools I started with, actually. So let's talk about what those things are. First of all, pretty much any business these days obviously needs a website. And that was the first thing that I set up for this business. And when I got started, I used WordPress. Now, at first, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted my website to look like. And I actually spent a whole lot of time during that first year just trying to figure out how to make WordPress work, how to get my website to look halfway decent. And it was a combination of WordPress being challenging and me not knowing what I wanted it to look like. So I regret, and this is a mistake, we're going to talk about some more mistakes later on toward the end of this video, but mistake that I regret is that I spent so much time working on getting my website right and fighting with WordPress. Now, eventually, after about a year, I did get WordPress to work for me pretty well, and I kept using it for the next several years in my business. Eventually, a couple years ago now, we switched over to Squarespace. And I did that mostly just because I wanted to simplify things. I didn't think that Squarespace was going to be better than WordPress or do more for us. And, it met my expectations there. It is a more limited, more simple platform, but it is doing exactly what I wanted it to do, which is save us a whole lot of time. Now, next thing that I set up was email marketing. Now, this isn't a must for every business, especially if you're more of an offline business, but I would rank it up there as only right behind your website. I think pretty much every business should at least be collecting email addresses, at least be building an email list, and should be regularly emailing those people because it is essentially a list of leads. And if you want to make sales, you need leads. So I really do believe that it is practically a necessity for businesses and that it certainly can help any business make more money. So what I got started with for my email list is ConvertKit, and that's what I still use today. Now, there are some great other options out there these days. One of my favorite, somewhat more affordable options is MailerLite, but I do love ConvertKit, and I've stayed with them for a reason. They've got a lot of advanced features and great deliverability that I think are well worth the cost. Now, if you're running an online business that sells digital products, then you will need some way to deliver those digital products. And for me, there have been two softwares that I've loved for this. One is Teachable, and that's what I used to use for my online courses when I was just selling online courses. And what I love about it is that it works really smoothly, like zero glitches, which is so nice. So it creates a really good experience for your customers, and it's easy for you to use. And they have some of the best priced plans for that sort of software on the market. So that's what I got started with, and that's what I would still recommend for selling online courses. Now, eventually, I wanted to start my membership program, Startup Society. And when I first did it, I used kind of a janky WordPress setup. But as soon as we launched, and that first launch was so successful, and we got 300 members right off the bat, I knew that it was worth investing more time and even some money into creating a more professional platform. So for that, I used Access Ally. This is basically a premium WordPress plugin, but it is head and shoulders above any other membership plugin that's out there. It works really well, and it is really robust and has so many advanced features. It lets you build a very custom platform for a membership, and it can look any way you want. So highly recommend Access Ally, but it is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the beginner. You will probably need some tech support. When I set up Access Ally, I worked with a design company that specialized in setting up Access Ally, and it did cost a few $1,000s to get that all set up. But at the end of the day, we had this custom membership platform on a beautifully designed website, and we've been using it for years ever since, and it has made me literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, and then the last two tools I'm going to tell you about real quick are both for more like managing your business. So one of them is Asana. So Asana is a project management software, and I started using it when I hired my project manager. She was like, "You need something like this, I would recommend Asana." I was like, "Okay, sign me up." And never looked back. It's been great. Now, I don't think you necessarily have to use Asana, although we do really like it, and I have no complaints, and I would highly recommend, especially because they have a free plan that works really well, so there's kind of no reason not to use it. But I do think you should use some sort of project management system, some sort of advanced to-do list system where you can schedule tasks and assign them to people on your team if you have a team, and you can put information in the tasks, that sort of thing, to keep yourself organized and keep yourself on track, because I think that makes a huge difference as you're building a business. And then the last software is Slack. Now, this one is totally optional. You would only need it if you have a team. But if you do have a team, then I think Slack is a great option for communicating with them. It keeps things a lot more organized than email threads do. And I also like that it keeps things more organized than texting does. But also, it really helps me to maintain work-life balance because it keeps my personal communications totally separate from my work communications. And I really only see the work communications when I sit down at my desk and I log into Slack on my desktop. I can access it on my phone, and sometimes I do when I'm on the road or something, but it's not mixed in with those personal communications in my text. So I love that separation of work and home life. And that's actually what we're going to talk about next. Next, let's talk about how I've managed to build this business while raising 5 kids. Now, of course, I didn't have 5 kids when I started the business because this was several years ago. In fact, I only had 1 kid when I first started trying to start this business. But as the business grew, so did our family. So one thing that really helped me was having really firm boundaries. As soon as the business actually started to grow, I just immediately settled into this boundary of not working more than about 20 hours a week. Now, I'm not super strict about it. If I need to work 25 or 30 hours a week, I do it, but I don't let the hours creep up or continue to grow. So it's not like 20 hours one week, then the next week 25, a few weeks later I'm up to 30, a few weeks later I'm up to 35. Like, I have built a business that takes 20 hours a week of my time. And most weeks of the year, I am under 20 hours a week. And then there's just a few weeks of the year when I might get up to 25 if we're doing a new launch or creating a new product or something like that. Another thing that made this possible isn't very exciting to talk about, but it is being very intentional about what I was trying to build. Now, I didn't always know exactly what it was going to look like, but I knew in general where I wanted to go with it. And I spent a lot of time throughout these years of building the business. There's been a lot of time where I sat at my desk and stared at the wall and thought about what I was trying to build, because it was something that I didn't necessarily have like automatic clarity about. But at the same time, I do think that it is important to be clear that I didn't wait until I had the perfect plan. While I was spending a lot of time trying to figure out the plan, I also was consistently taking action on whatever I perceived the next step to be. So I'd spend a fair amount of time, thinking about what that plan should be. But every single week and pretty much every single day, I was figuring out what the next steps were, and I was actually taking action on them and getting things done. But the only way that was possible was by having time set aside to work on the business. And that's, I think, perhaps the thing that most people kind of like feel the pain around. They think that it's hard to find the time. I think, though, that once you know what you're trying to do, that it's relatively easy to find the time. Even if you are a busy mom, even if you work a job, whatever it is that is taking your time, you still have gaps. It might be waking up earlier. It might be staying up later. It might be working while your kids are napping. It might be trading childcare with somebody. But as moms, I firmly believe that it is important for us to let our kids have time where they are self-directing, where they are playing on their own, that we are not constantly nannying them. Now, of course, you want to make sure your kids have supervision and they're safe and whatnot, but that doesn't mean you need to be constantly interacting with them or constantly entertaining them. And so whether that is, again, like you working when they're sleeping, or it's you telling them, Mom's going to work now, so leave me alone, go play on your own, go find something to do in your room, go play in the backyard, whatever it is. I think that's really important and good for them. And it also makes it possible for us to pursue our passions as well. Now, the last thing I want to share with you today is some mistakes that I made that I'm hoping I can help you avoid. And it's kind of one main mistake that I want to talk to you about, but there were a few different ways that I made this mistake. And the big picture version of the mistake is trying to optimize or systematize things that aren't yet working. See, when you optimize something or systematize or automate something, you just get more of the results that you are already getting. So a great example of this is early on in my business, I tried to automate my sales process. Now, I'm a big proponent of automating your sales process because it allows you to consistently make sales around the clock, whether you're working or not. I think it's great. But I tried to do it way too soon in my business. I tried to do it when I didn't yet have any sales. So I didn't have a manual process that was working well. So when I automated it, I just got more of the result I was already getting. And the result I was already getting was 0 sales. And 0 times, any number is just still going to be 0. So instead, what I would highly recommend you do is that for any process, any system in your business, first you do things very manually in a way that, quote, won't scale. And then once you're getting good results with it, then you delegate or automate or systematize that so that you can scale it. Let me give you a few other examples of how I made this mistake. One was that I tried to create online courses and sell those before I had done like a live version of the course. So I created the product before I sold it. Whereas what I should have done and what ended up working much better was to just plan a live workshop, a live training, a live program, and promote that based on the plans I had for it. And then when I saw that there was interest in it, then I had real students come into the program or come to the workshop. And I was able to work with them in this live, more manual way and figure out, what they really needed help with and help them to the best of my ability. And then I could take that and automate it by creating an online course and selling it where people could go through it on their own. Another way I made this mistake was hiring people too soon. So I tried hiring people before my business was actually making any money. And my thinking was that, and this wasn't just my thinking, but I'd heard this advice that you need to, get rid of those tasks that don't make you any money so you can focus on the important work. And that makes sense. And, once your business is making money, it's a great decision. But again, when the business wasn't making any money yet, trying to automate some things, trying to delegate things, it just made me get more of the same results, which was more of earning $0. And then one more little example, and I actually didn't quite make this mistake myself, but I see a lot of people make this mistake, and it's another great example of what I'm talking about here, so I want to share it. And that is, with YouTube, I waited until I was getting views on my videos and actually until my channel was making money before I brought a video editor into the mix. Now, I know video editing can be time consuming and a lot of people don't like doing it very much, so they want to outsource it right away. But really, it is best to do it yourself for a little while so you can figure out your video style, what you want your videos to end up being like. And you can learn what, when you're filming, makes the video easier or harder to edit. So that then when you start working with an editor, you're able to get the results you really want. And also, you might find out that you don't like making videos, or you might struggle to grow your channel. And you won't really know why that's happening if you don't have your hands in it and you're not doing it yourself. Overarching lesson here is do things manually, do things yourself first. And then once you have something that's working, then delegate it or automate it or somehow make it into a system. Now, finally, if you happen to be new here, there are 2 things I would love for you to do. One is subscribe, because I make new videos all about online business and growing your online business every single month. And I would love to have you join me for the next one. So just hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss it. And the other thing is leave me a comment and tell me a little bit about your business, whether it's a business you've already started or a business you want to start, but tell me about what the business is and where you are in the process of it, because I would love to get to know you a little bit, learn more about you and your business. And also it's a great way to give yourself a little bit of free promo. All right, well, that's it for this video. But next up, if you're looking for something else to watch, I would recommend you check out one I made a few months ago called 5 Practical Steps to Start Your First Business as a Stay-at-Home Mom. In that video, I talk about the process that I went through, kind of tell the story of how I started this online business in a lot more detail than I went into today, about blow by blow of exactly what I did to start it. But I also break down 5 really practical steps that you can follow to get your own online business successfully started. So you'll definitely want to check that one out.